Hey, Brian here with worshiptutorials.com. I recently picked up this Warm Audio Neve 1073 preamp and EQ 2-channel hardware unit. And ever since getting this, I have really been enjoying it, but I have wondered, how does this thing stack up to, as a Universal Audio Apollo user, how does it stack up to the UAD Neve 1073 Unison Preamp plugin? So I devised a little experiment to test the two out and see how they compare, and I thought you might be interested in the results as well. This is what I did. I took this XLR splitter and I ran one input into this, and you get two outputs out. And so I did an acoustic guitar take and a vocal take. That's kind of my bread and butter here at Worship Tutorials, what I do the most. So I matched the hardware and the plugin as close as I could. I'm gonna put on the screen the settings that I used for both the hardware and the plugin. I started with the hardware and I got the hardware sounding like I liked it. And then I matched the plugin to the settings, and then I just used my ears because they sounded a little bit different to me. This is also a kind of a 2-for-1 because I've had a lot of questions about microphones lately, and I use Earthworks microphones a lot, and I use these Slate microphones, modeling microphones, a lot, and I've had questions about these. This is the Slate ML1. I use this on my voice with the Telefunken 251 mic emulation. This is the Slate ML2. This thing is awesome. It's a small diaphragm condenser, $150, and I use the Sheps, is that how you pronounce that? Sheps M222 mic emulation on that. I processed the audio exactly the same for both running through the plugin and through the hardware. I'll come back after the audio demo and give you my thoughts. Put on some headphones that sound good, or listen through some decent monitoring. Otherwise, you're probably not going to hear much of a difference at all. I'll see you in a bit.
You are mine, and I am yours. I am yours, and this will be forevermore, forevermore. And nothing could ever take that away. I am here to stay. Seasons come and seasons go. There is winter, summer, spring, and fall. But there is one thing I'll always know, that you love me and I love you. And if the rain should fall and wash everything away, and if the wind should blow and blow everything away, well, I will stay, I will stay, I will stay, I will stay. Seasons come and seasons go. There is winter, summer, spring, and fall. But there is one thing I'll always know, that you love me and I love you.
Okay, so my initial takeaway from this experiment is both the plugin and the hardware sound great. And if you're listening on a phone or a laptop, I doubt you would have been able to tell much of a difference at all. You might not have been able to tell much of a difference regardless of what you're listening to. I personally could hear a difference. It was noticeable to me. And if you're experienced mixing audio, or if you have really good ear, you might have really noticed a difference as well. But they both sound really good, and they both kind of have the same vibe to them. I've never used an actual, like a vintage Neve 1073 preamp and EQ hardware unit, so I can't say in my experience that it sounds just like the real thing. But they both sound sort of the same. I do think that the hardware, the warm audio hardware, sounds better. And it really becomes apparent in a couple of things. One, the low end and sort of the low mids have a lot more, I don't know what the word is. How do you describe the way things sound, really? There's a lot more richness to them through the hardware. They sound less mushy and muddy through the hardware to me, and they just have a nicer character to it, a little bit more magic to them than through the plugin. The high end to me sounds smoother and a little more refined through the hardware. Through the plugin, it got a little harsh. Like I said, I did process these tracks exactly the same. I mixed the hardware version basically, and then I just copied and pasted the plugins and everything to the plugin tracks, and I tried to go minimal on this. I just used EQ and compression, and then I put a little bit of reverb on the vocal as well, just to make it, sound like it's an actual song. I did a little bit of experimenting with the two as I was mixing them. As I pushed high end on the plug-in take, it got harsh quicker than when I pushed it on the hardware take. So the hardware sort of retained this really silky smooth character. That's a word that you'll hear a lot when people talk about Neve 1073s, is that it's very silky on the high end. And I noticed that through the hardware, through the warm audio hardware, whereas the plug-in got a little brittle and harsh as I pushed it a little more. But in the end, like I said, I just copied and pasted settings from one to the other. I think there's a little more clarity in the hardware take as well. Just overall, the mix sounds a little bit muddier and mushier through the plug-in. Like I said earlier, these things are subtle. They can be very difficult to hear, especially depending on what you're listening through. But I definitely hear the difference. And the difference, honestly, I expected it to be closer. There's more of a difference than I anticipated, because UAD makes awesome plugins. I use their plugins a lot. I love their Unison Preamp plugins. I use the API Vision preamp, Unison Preamp. I use the SSL preamp. I use the 610B. By the way, I'm pointing at it over here. I'm borrowing a Universal Audio LA610 Mark II hardware unit. So if you want, let me know. I can compare that thing to the UAD plugin as well. But I use their plugins a lot, and they sound really good. And the Neve 1073 plugin from them is highly regarded, and it does sound great. But the hardware, the warm audio hardware, has just a little more magic. I can only imagine an actual Neve unit would have even more, but those things are expensive. So if you're looking at one of these hardware units, I can talk a little bit more about it and my experience with using it. There is something really cool. This thing, by the way, is heavy. If I start sweating, it's because I'm trying to hold this thing up with one hand as I talk about it. This thing is built, right? So it is not it doesn't feel like a cheaply made product, even though for two channels of Neve 1073 clone preamp and EQ, it's pretty inexpensive. Even if you look this up and think that thing is expensive, when you get into this world, this thing is quite affordable compared to what's out there. So it's got a lot of features. One thing on the warm audio unit is the high shelf for the EQ is you can select the frequency. So on the actual Neve 1073 and on the plugin that I used, it's fixed at 12K, but you can select. You can turn it off. You can go 10K, 12K, or 16K. That's actually a feature in the Neve 1084. It's nice that they put this in there. I left it at 12K though, just so it would replicate the plugin and the original hardware. You've got your input level here, of course, high pass filter, EQ. You can turn the EQ on and off, and then an output level for each channel. It has this tone switch that changes sort of I think it's the impedance. I need to look up the manual. It changes the sort of the character. If you turn it on, it kind of gives it a little more of that vintage thing. You can run line inserts into this, so you can actually use this. You can send audio to it. Say you've got virtual drums in your project or something, you can run those through this thing. And the fact that this is 2-channel, you can use it as a stereo unit to send stereo tracks through and process them, EQ them. The knobs and pots on this thing, all and the buttons all feel really solid, really well made. It just feels like a quality piece of hardware, and it's a lot of fun to use. There's something about turning an actual knob and dial that you don't quite get from a plugin. But the plugin certainly offers you many advantages as well. First of all, the fact is if you buy it once, you have any number of instances of it. So you've only got 2 channels of hardware. You've got as many channels of plugin as your DSP will allow if you're on a universal audio system. You can recall presets, which is nice at the click of a button. Very handy. So there are certainly advantages, disadvantages to going both ways. But I would like to know what you think. Do you think the hardware sounds better? Can you hear a difference? Do you think I should return this? I got this from Sweetwater, and I actually told my Sweetwater rep that I would be testing it out and comparing it, and might potentially be returning it. And he said, hey, that's fine, just let me know. And so I did this basically to see how much of a difference is there. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Hey, if you're new to the channel, I don't do a lot of this kind of stuff. I'm not like a pro audio recording production channel, but I can certainly do more of these if you want. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next one. Bye.